Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are cracking open the hidden code of human interaction. We're taking a deep dive into the foundational work of Alan Peace, the renowned expert on nonverbal communication.
Specifically body language.
Exactly. And if you're preparing for a critical meeting, maybe leading a negotiation, or you're just curious about how to read people faster and more accurately, you are absolutely in the right place.
We talk a lot about communication strategy, but what's so often missed is, it's the sheer volume of information that's sent before a single word is even processed.
Right. The numbers are they're shocking when you really look at them.
They really are. Verbal communication, the actual words, it can be as little as 7% of the message, especially in that first meeting.
7%,
Yeah.
that's nothing. So you're saying 93% of what you're trying to convey, your confidence, your attitude, it's all just leaking out non-verbally.
It's leaking out through your posture, your gestures, your eye movement. It's like this invisible conversation happening right under the surface of the meeting agenda.
So our mission today is to give you a shortcut into that 93%.
A high-leverage shortcut, yeah.
Hmm.
We want to move beyond the basics and really arm you with the ability to spot critical clusters of behavior, to recognize signals of resistance or dominance, and ultimately understand the true attitudes of the people you deal with every day.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why is body language so much more dominant? Why should we trust it more than the perfectly polished words someone is saying?
What's so fascinating is that it all comes down to our evolutionary history. A lot of these nonverbal signals, especially the ones related to stress or defense, they're just hardwired.
So biologically programmed?
Exactly. They were developed for survival long before we could even form complex sentences. Your limbic system, your primal brain, it reacts to a threat, and your body moves instantly. Your conscious mind, the part that's choosing your words, is always a step behind.
Which brings us to this idea of congruence, right? If the words and the body are telling two totally different stories, the body is basically the lie detector.
It is the ultimate tiebreaker. If someone is saying, yes, I am fully committed to this, but they're sitting rigidly, their arms are crossed, maybe they're touching their collar.
All these little stress signals.
Right. Those nonverbal signs of withdrawal just cancel out the words. So when in doubt, you always trust the involuntary signals. They reveal the real attitude.
That makes perfect sense. But here's where, this is the part I think most people get wrong.
Yep.
They see one thing, right? A quick scratch of the nose.
And they immediately jump to deception.
Exactly. But the source material is so clear on this. You can't interpret one isolated movement. You have to look for clusters.
This is maybe the single most crucial concept to get. Think of it like a sentence.
Yeah.
A single word can be ambiguous, right?
Sure.
But a full sentence gives you clarity, gives you context. A cluster means 3 or more congruent gestures happening at the same time that all point to the same attitude.
So give us an example. What would a cluster look like?
Okay, so let's say someone is tapping their foot, which signals impatience, and their arms are crossed, which is defensive, and their mouth is downturned, which is negative. That cluster confirms a closed-off, resistant attitude.
Right. It moves you from maybe they're just restless to, okay, they are actively resistant to what I am saying.
Precisely.
Now, we have to talk about the context caveat, because if I see someone cross their arms and we're sitting outside and it's freezing cold, I can't just assume they're hostile.
Of course not. Context is the essential filter. If the environment gives you a clear, logical reason for a gesture, like the cold, or maybe just being tired for an eye rub, you dismiss it.
But if the environment is neutral,
Then the signal is purely emotional. It's attitudinal. You always have to establish a baseline and check the context before you start interpreting anything.
okay, let's move into some specific high-leverage postures. Let's start with the most common signal of resistance, the arm barrier.
The basic folded arm stance. It's universal. It's a fundamental defensive reaction that creates a psychological and, well, a literal barrier between you and the other person.
And people do it when they're unhappy, critical.
Or just anxious. They instinctively retreat into that posture because it gives them self-comfort. It feels protective.
But the sources detail some really important variations because the intensity of that defensiveness really matters.
It does. If you see someone not just crossing their arms, but grabbing their opposite wrist or forearm really tightly, that's a whole other level.
What does that signal?
That intensity shows they are actively fighting to suppress a deeply negative or angry attitude. They're physically restraining themselves. That's high-stakes frustration. And if you see that, you have to pivot. You are losing the argument fast.
So if you see that tight arm cross, what's the move? How do you
Uh,
How do you break that barrier?
Hard to interrupt it. You have to break that physical posture.
Yeah.
You could hand them something.
Oh, like a pen or a document?
A pen, a report, a cup of coffee, anything that forces them to physically uncross their arms. It changes their entire state. Or you could ask them a question that forces them to use their hands to explain something.
That's very tactical. Okay, let's flip it. What about gestures of superiority and confidence? The most famous has to be the steeple.
The steeple, yeah, where the fingertips just touch to form a kind of pyramid.
Hmm.
It's a huge signal of confidence. It's used by people who are very comfortable with their own authority, their own thought process.
Why is it so powerful?
Well, if you look at the physiology of it, they're keeping their hands engaged but also still, and it often allows the body to stay open, exposing the chest and sternum, which is a clear sign of fearlessness.
And the sources mentioned two distinct forms, right? The raised steeple and the lowered steeple.
That's right. The raised steeple is more dynamic. It's used when the speaker is actively giving their opinion, laying out a plan, making a strong point. It really emphasizes their words.
And the lowered steeple.
The lowered steeple is often resting down low, maybe on the table or in their lap, and it's typically used when someone is listening. It's the quiet confidence of a decision maker who is taking in information, comfortable that they hold the final judgment.
And what about that other big sign of superiority, hands behind the back?
Classic move. Placing the hands behind the back exposes the entire vulnerable front of the body. It signals that the person feels zero threat. They feel superior in the situation.
But the grip matters here too, doesn't it?
The grip tells you everything. Holding the wrist high up the back shows a greater sense of authority. But if they're gripping their own forearm really tightly, that can be a complex signal. It can be internal anxiety being masked by an outwardly superior pose. It shows great self-control, but not necessarily inner peace.
So even before all this posturing, you have the first point of contact, the handshake. This is basically the playbook for establishing control in the first 3 seconds.
A handshake is a mini negotiation. It really is. The goal should always be the equality handshake palms vertical, establishing mutual respect.
But that's not what always happens.
No. If someone turns their palms slightly downward as they grip yours, that's the dominant handshake. They're asserting control right from the start. You actually feel physically steered.
Okay, so if you get hit with a dominant handshake, is there a way to neutralize it without being awkward?
Oh, absolutely. The source suggests a simple counter. As they try to turn your palm down, you can either place your left hand gently on top of theirs, the classic politician's handshake,
I can picture that.
or you can just step slightly forward and into their personal space. It breaks the aggressive angle and reestablishes physical equality. You've just signaled resistance to their dominance claim without saying a single word.
Let's move on to the signals that leak out when people are under stress, specifically when they're trying to hide something. The classic deception signals often involve hands going to the face.
We call this the three monkeys effect. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's a physical leftover of trying to filter bad information. When people lie or just feel really uncomfortable with what they're saying or hearing, their hands are just drawn to their face.
I see people rub their nose a lot. Is that connected?
It is. The primary deception gesture is the mouth cover, the hand coming right up to the lips to stop the words. But we learn pretty quickly that that's too obvious.
Right, it's too overt.
So the gesture gets refined. The nose rub is often a quicker, more subtle version of the mouth cover. The mind wants to suppress the words, but the hand only gets as far as the nose.
And what if they want to block out what they're hearing?
Then you see the eye rub. They're literally trying to see no evil or block out an unpleasant reality. Other common tells are scratching the neck, rubbing the ear, or pulling at the collar.
The collar pull always seems so dramatic.
It often comes with a rise in blood pressure, a physical feeling of heat and anxiety because of the conflict between what they're thinking and what they're saying.
It's amazing how much focus we put on controlling our face, our hands, but we totally forget about the rest of our body.
We do, and that's what makes the legs and feet, well, arguably the most honest part of the body.
Because nobody's practicing their foot poker face in the mirror.
Exactly. Nobody thinks about it. So while a standard leg cross is generally defensive, there's one you have to recognize. The figure four position.
That's where the ankle rests on the opposite knee.
Right. And that is a high leverage signal. If you see that, especially in a high stakes setting, it suggests a deeply entrenched competitive resistance.
It seems like a very territorial stance.
It's extremely territorial, superior, and argumentative. It physically blocks the other person, and it's a very rigid posture. If you're negotiating with someone in the figure four, you are facing serious, highly controlled opposition. You've got to try and break that position before you can make any real progress.
And what about when people are stuck, but they just want to leave? The language of directional feet.
It's the simplest and maybe the most profound signal of disengagement. The feet will always point where the mind wants to go.
Always.
Always. If you're talking to someone and their feet are subtly pointed toward the door or just angled away from you, they're signaling a desire to escape. They might be smiling and nodding, but their body is already planning its exit.
I find that one so useful, even just at a party. If their torso is facing me, but their feet are pointed toward the bar, I know where their real priority is.
Precisely. And the reverse is true. If their feet are squared directly toward you, even if they seem a bit reserved, that confirms genuine interest.
Let's turn to the eye then, the ultimate involuntary signal. You can't really fake what your pupils are doing.
That's right. The pupil size is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. You have no conscious control over it. When you're genuinely interested, excited, or looking at something pleasant, your pupils dilate, they get bigger.
And when you're angry or disinterested?
They constrict, they get smaller. Savvy negotiators have looked for this for centuries. It's the physiological tell of true interest.
It really gives a new meaning to the phrase, their eyes lit up when they see something they want.
It's a pure biological expression of attraction or interest. Now, speaking of attraction, we should touch on the more conscious or semi-conscious nonverbal courtship signals.
The preening and display rituals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's start with the signals associated with men. They're often focused on displaying confidence.
What kind of things?
You'll see a lot of adjusting, clothing, smoothing the tie, fixing the cuffs, and then the highly confident, almost aggressive signal of placing the thumbs in the belt or in the pockets.
Why that one specifically?
It subconsciously frames the pelvic area. It signals sexual confidence or a desire to kind of stake a claim. It's a very open, fearless display.
And for women, the sources detail signals that are more about highlighting features and signaling approachability.
Correct. The most common ones include the classic hair flip or sweep, which exposes the neck and draws attention. Also smoothing clothing, like running a hand down a skirt or leg.
And specific postures, too.
Yes, especially seated leg postures. For instance, a leg cross that exposes more of the upper thigh. These are all subtle, learned behaviors for communicating attraction and, a readiness to interact.
This has been a true deep dive into that hidden 93%. If you're walking away with just 2 key takeaways, it should probably be this. Always look for clusters of gestures.
Right, to confirm an attitude.
And to strategically prioritize the signals you can't easily control, the feet, the pupils, and those deep biological defense postures.
Absolutely. Just remember the core dichotomy. Openness versus closure. Openness is palms up, vertical handshakes, body pointed toward you. Closed and resistant attitudes scream through crossed arms, hand-to-face signals, and that rigid, competitive figure 4 leg posture.
And recognizing these in real time lets you pivot your entire strategy on the spot.
You no longer have to wait for the words to catch up. You can read the room, understand the real level of resistance, and adjust your approach before the other side even knows they've shown their cards.
A huge advantage?
So, to leave you with a final thought to consider. Next time you're in a formal meeting or watching a presentation, don't just focus on who's speaking the loudest. Instead, watch the handshakes. Watch for the use of the steeple gesture. Who's maintaining the most consistently open, fearless posture, based purely on their unwavering body language, who is really directing the conversation, and who's just responding to an outcome that's already been decided. The body knows the truth long before the mouth catches up.
I want you to picture this. You're walking into a room for, let's say, a really high-stakes moment. Could be a big meeting, a job interview, maybe even a first date. You've spent hours, maybe days, getting your words perfect.
Like polishing the script.
Exactly. You focused on, well, what turns out to be only 7% of your message.
And that number, 7%, is just a radical starting point for our whole deep dive today.
It really is.
We're digging into the really influential research compiled by Alan Pease in his work, Body Language.
Yeah.
And it proves that the words, the things you've practiced, they only account for, just 7% of your overall impact.
That statistic is just shocking. And that's our mission today, right? To help you become a much more insightful observer almost instantly. Because if words are only 7%, I mean, where is all the rest of that message coming from?
Well, the classic communication ratio really lays it all out.
Yeah.
You've got the words, that's your 7%. Then there's the auditory part. your tone of voice, the speed, the volume. And that's actually pretty powerful. It clocks in at 38%.
Okay, so that's 45% combined.
Right. But that leaves this dominant, totally silent chunk.
Uh-huh.
A staggering 55% of the message is broadcast purely through nonverbal signals.
Wow. 55%.
Your posture, your gestures, how you hold your hands, all of it.
That is massive. It means if you're only paying attention to what's being said, you are missing more than half the conversation. The 55% is where the subconscious truth is.
It is the truth. Because your body often speaks before your conscious mind can, filter it.
Right.
And this brings us to the single most critical rule for today. You absolutely must never interpret a single gesture in isolation.
You have to read them in clusters.
In clusters, exactly.
Can you give us a really concrete example of that? Because that's such a key distinction.
Absolutely. So let's say you're talking to a client and you see their arms are crossed. Now, your first instinct might be, oh, they disagree with me. But you could be totally wrong.
Right, maybe the AC is just cranked up too high.
Exactly. Maybe they're just cold. But if their arms are crossed and their head is down and they're leaning away from you...
And maybe fiddling with a pen or something?
Yes. That entire cluster confirms it. It points to a closed-off, skeptical, or defensive attitude. The more signals you see, the more certain you can be. Context and clusters are everything.
Okay, so let's start reading those signals. Let's talk about the most common signs of defense, the barriers we put up without even thinking.
The first and most universal one is the arm barrier.
The classic arm cross.
The classic. When a person crosses their arms over their chest, it's a nonverbal attempt to build a barricade. It means they feel vulnerable or threatened or just not comfortable with what's happening.
It's like an adult security blanket.
It really is. And these barriers, they escalate depending on the level of stress. The research shows you can tell how severe it is by what the hands are doing.
Ah.
Precisely. If they're just holding their arms, it's a general defense. But if you see what's called arm gripping, where the hands are actually clutching their own upper arms or shoulders.
That's a huge red flag.
A huge one. That grip is a self-soothing gesture. It amplifies the defensiveness and shows they're trying to restrict their emotions. They're telling themselves, hold on, hold it together.
And what about when people are standing? Like in a presentation or waiting for feedback? I feel like I see this one a lot, the hand-clenched guard.
Oh, that posture is fascinating. It's so protective, and it's rooted in pure anxiety.
Right.
You'll see a person standing with their hands clasped low, sometimes behind their back, but very often right in front of the groin area.
And they might use a prop, like a purse or a tablet to kind of cover up.
Yes, or just grasp a coat button. It's this urgent subconscious need for emotional security when they feel exposed or unprepared.
Okay, so from physical barriers, let's move up to the face. The hand-to-face signals that so often give away doubt or even deception.
It's all about suppression, really.
How so?
Well, think about it. It's the adult version of what kids do. A little kid tells a lie, what's the first thing they do?
Cover their mouth.
They cover their mouth. The subconscious mind still tries to physically stop those negative words or thoughts from getting out.
And the most obvious one is the mouth guard, where the hand literally covers the mouth or fingers touch the lips.
That's a very clear, involuntary sign that the person is trying to suppress something they shouldn't say. But as we get older, we get better at hiding it.
Which leads to the much quicker, more sophisticated nose touch.
I find this one so compelling. It's so fast.
It is. It's a micro expression of that mouth guard. Just a fleeting brush of the nose. The research suggests it signals doubt, maybe exaggeration, or a rejection of an idea. You're trying to stop the mouth without being obvious.
And then for the listener who's struggling with what they're hearing, we see these other things, these displacement activities, the ear rub, the neck scratch.
Right, the body is just venting nervous energy.
Exactly. If you see someone doing an ear rub while you're talking, they're literally trying to hear no evil.
They're trying not to hear it.
They're mentally resisting the information.
Yeah.
And if they scratch the back of their neck, that fleshy part right under the earlobe, the neck scratch, that's a really strong sign of doubt or disagreement. They're pushing back on what you're saying.
Okay, so we've covered defense and deception. Now let's flip it. Let's talk about how people project the opposite. Authority, control. And this starts the second you make contact, right? With the handshake.
The handshake is probably the most underrated moment in any business interaction. It's a 3-second nonverbal contest for control. And the key is all in the palm.
So if your palm is turned slightly down when you shake, That's the dominant posture.
Yes, that small rotation forces the other person's hand into a submissive, upward-facing position. You're non-verbally saying, I'm in control here.
And the opposite, if your palm is facing up, is the submissive handshake. You're basically offering the other person the lead.
You're deferring to them.
So how do we make sure we're not accidentally sending that submissive signal?
You have to consciously aim for the equality handshake. You approach with your palm perfectly vertical. It communicates mutual respect, a balanced connection. And if you know you're about to shake hands with a dominant shader, you can train yourself to step in a little earlier and keep that vertical posture firm to resist being rolled over.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
And that leads to another intentional signal. If the handshake is the first impression, the steeple gesture is about sustained confidence during the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. The steeple where the fingertips just meet, like a church steeple, is one of the most powerful signs of confidence out there.
It signals certainty.
Supreme confidence,
Yeah.
certainty, sometimes even superiority. You see decision makers do it right after they've made up their mind or when they're about to give instructions.
Yeah.
It's a physical way of saying, I know what I'm talking about.
Is it always interpreted that way? I feel like I've seen it in two different forms.
That's a really sharp observation. The context is key. You have the upward steeple, which is held higher, usually when the person is speaking or actively thinking. Then there's the downward steeple, where the hands are resting lower, on a table or in their lap. This is often used by someone in a position of power while they're listening.
So what does that mean if they're listening to me?
It means they're giving you the floor, but they feel they already hold the final authority on the topic. They're confident in their position, even while listening.
So if hands and arms are what we consciously control, let's go to the parts of the body we almost never think about managing, the legs and feet. This is where the truth comes out.
This is so critical.
Mm-hmm.
People spend all their energy managing, their face, their tone, their upper body.
Right.
But the legs and feet are further from the brain, often out of sight, so they react subconsciously. They're often the most honest parts of the body.
So when someone is seated, what are their legs telling us?
Well, the classic sign of skepticism is just simple crossed legs. Like crossed arms, it signals a closed or defensive mind. But when the anxiety gets deeper, you see the ankle lock.
Describe that one. Why does the body do that?
The ankles literally lock together, and often they're tucked right under the chair. It's a self-imposed restraint.
Like you're holding yourself back.
You're holding yourself back from a flight response. The person subconsciously wants to get out of there, but they're physically stopping themselves. It's a powerful signal that they're holding back emotion or feeling really vulnerable.
And on the flip side of that anxiety, you have this very confident, sometimes even confrontational posture, the American figure four.
Ah, the figure four. One ankle crossed over the other knee. Now, this can just mean someone is relaxed, but in a serious discussion or a disagreement, the meaning totally shifts.
Why is that?
Because it's an expansive territorial pose. It takes up space. It suggests the person is really dug into their position, resistant to changing their mind, and basically ready to argue. It's a physical challenge.
And that idea of barriers comes back when standing, too. You mentioned using objects as a standing barrier.
Yes. If someone standing feels uncomfortable, they'll often hold a briefcase, a laptop bag, even a purse right in front of their body. It's a shield.
They're literally trying to put distance between themselves and whatever is making them uneasy.
Exactly. It's a clear sign they aren't fully engaged or comfortable.
Okay, now for our final section. And this is maybe the most primal signals of attraction, interest, and our environment. We have to start with the eyes. They really are involuntary truth tellers.
They're magnificent broadcasters of intent. But the most honest signal is one you can't control, pupil dilation. When a person is genuinely interested, excited, or, attracted to what they're looking at, their pupils get bigger.
And you can't fake that at all, right? It's totally unconscious.
Cannot fake it. It's a pure reflex. It's so powerful that historically people use belladonna drops to make their pupils dilate to seem more attractive.
Wow.
So when you see dilation, you're seeing pure, unfiltered interest.
Sure.
But beyond that, you have to watch the direction of the gaze.
Okay, how do the different gaze zones change the meaning?
In a serious business meeting, you want to use the power gaze. You keep your eye contact in the triangle between their eyes and forehead.
That projects seriousness.
And control. If you drop that gaze down to the lips or below the chin, you've entered the intimate gaze zone. That signals attraction, and you really want to avoid it in most professional settings.
And this leads right into courtship and preening gestures, the little things we do when we want to attract attention.
Right. These are all signals to increase your visibility and appeal. For men, it's often things like adjusting a tie, fixing a cuff, or the very powerful hands-on-hips pose.
Why that one?
It makes the body look physically larger, more dominant, more territorial. It's a display of power and readiness.
And for women, the signals are just as subtle, but often more directional.
Yes, a lot of preening gestures, flipping the hair, a prolonged glance. But objects are also really telling. A pose used as a barrier signals exclusion. But if it's left aside and her body is oriented toward you, that signals she's open to engagement.
And maybe the most telling signal of all, when nobody thinks about, is where the feet are pointing.
Exactly. Even if two people are talking face to face, the direction of the feet or the crossed leg when they're seated almost always points toward the person or thing they find most interesting.
So if you're talking to someone and their feet are pointed at the door,
Their body is broadcasting an unconscious desire to leave, no matter how polite their words are.
we have covered so much ground today, from defense to power to attraction. For the listener taking all of this in, what's the ultimate lesson here?
The ultimate takeaway is that communication is so much more than words. 55% of the story is told before you even open your mouth. Knowing these clusters, the defensive arms, the anxious ankles, the confident steeples, the directional feet, it gives you this incredible advantage in reading social dynamics quickly and accurately.
It's a shortcut to understanding intent.
It really is.
And the application isn't just about decoding other people. It comes right back to the 55% that you're projecting. We spend all this energy polishing that 7%, the words.
I mean, think about it. If your body is broadcasting 55% of your message, what unconscious signal is it sending without your permission? A hidden leg cross in that interview, an unnecessary neck scratch during a tough conversation, a weak handshake that kills a deal before it starts.
It's time to move beyond just scripting your words and start managing your silent message.
Exactly. Start observing yourself. The truth is always visible. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we sift through a pile of great sources, research, articles, expert analysis to pull out the key insights, the stuff you can actually use.
And today we're diving into something really fascinating. We are basically trying to crack the hidden code of human interaction.
Exactly. I mean, have you ever been in a conversation where the person is, nodding and smiling, but your gut is just screaming that something is off?
Oh, absolutely. And your gut was right. We're getting into the fundamentals of nonverbal communication, drawing a lot from Alan Pease's foundational work on body language.
And here's a statistic that just floors me every time I hear it.
It's a wild one.
The actual words we use. They can account for as little as 7% of the total message.
Just 7%. The rest, that huge 93%, is all tone of voice and what we're focusing on today, body language. Our sources put that piece alone at 60 to 80% of the message.
Especially in those first meetings, right? Or when things get a bit emotional.
For sure. So our mission today is really to give you a shortcut to understanding that huge 80%. We want you to go from just, seeing what someone's doing to actually knowing what they're feeling.
Which is a superpower in a negotiation, a sales meeting, even just a first date.
Okay, so let's start with the foundations, the big question first.
Mm-hmm.
Why is body language, more reliable than what someone says?
It's all about biology, isn't it?
It really is. It comes down to biology and speed. A lot of these gestures, shrugging, covering your mouth when you're surprised, your pupils getting wider, they're instinctual. They're reflexes.
So they happen before we can even think about them.
Exactly. They're wired into our lizard brain, our limbic system, which makes them incredibly hard to fake or control consciously. The body just it leaps the truth before the logical brain can step in and tell a polite lie.
Which leads right into what has to be the golden rule here, the rule of congruence.
Yes.
When someone says, I am so excited for this project, but their voice is flat and they're slumped in their chair. What's the real story?
You always go with the nonverbal. The conscious mind might say yes to avoid a conflict, but the body language tells you the real story. But, and this is a huge but, you can't just stop there.
Right, this is the part that I think was a real aha moment for me.
Yeah.
You can't just spot one little twitch and think you've cracked the code.
You absolutely cannot. That's the biggest mistake people make. You have to use what we call the concept of clusters.
A cluster.
A single gesture, say a quick nose scratch or crossing your arms, it means nothing on its own. It's just a bit of data. You need a cluster of, say, 3 or more gestures that are all happening at the same time and all pointing to the same attitude.
So if I'm in a meeting and I cross my arms...
It could just mean you're cold or that the chair is uncomfortable.
But if I cross my arms and I'm not making eye contact and my feet are pointing towards the door.
Now you have a cluster. And that cluster is shouting defensiveness, maybe resistance, and a pretty strong desire to get out of there. You need that triple check.
And, of course, there's always context. If someone's arms are crossed and they're shivering, well, they're probably just cold, not defensive about your quarterly report.
Context is everything. It's the filter for all of this. But, okay, assuming the context is neutral, let's start looking at some of these big, high-leverage signals. Let's start with posture.
Okay, the most obvious one, the arm barrier. Someone just folds their arms across their chest. What's happening there psychologically?
It's a self-soothing gesture, fundamentally. The body is instinctively building a wall, a physical barrier, to feel protected. It usually signals a defensive, maybe negative, or just a closed-off attitude to whatever is happening.
It's like they're physically blocking your ideas.
They really are, but you have to watch for the little escalations.
You mean how tightly they're holding on?
Precisely. A loose fold is one thing, but when someone isn't just folding their arms, but is actually gripping their opposite wrist or forearm really tightly, that signals a much, much higher level of internal tension.
They're holding themselves back.
Literally. They're fighting to control a strong negative reaction, maybe frustration or anger. If you see that tight grip, you need to stop what you're doing, stop selling your idea, and focus on rebuilding rapport, because you've lost them.
Okay, so that's defense. What about the other side of the coin?
Yeah.
Gestures that just scream confidence and authority.
When you're trying to figure out who's really in charge in a room, you look at the hands, and the absolute classic signal of confidence is the steeple gesture.
Oh yeah, the fingertips touching like a little pyramid.
That's the one. You see it with CEOs, politicians, anyone in a position of power.
So what is it actually doing? It feels so deliberate.
It's a display of intellectual confidence. It suggests the person is certain, they have conviction in what they're saying, but there's a key distinction you have to make.
Between the raised steeple and the lowered steeple, right?
Exactly. The raised steeple, where the hands are up high, maybe near the face, that's what someone does when they are giving their opinion. They're talking, persuading, leading the discussion.
They're broadcasting.
Right. But the lowered steeple, held down near the waist or resting on a table, that's the tell of a true decision maker. They use it when they're listening. It signals this immense self-assurance. They're quietly processing everything from a position of authority, getting ready to make a call.
And what about the hands behind the back pose? That can look really casual, but I get the feeling it's not.
It's anything but. Standing with your hands clasped behind your back, especially if you're gripping your own wrist or forearm high up, that signals superiority and a total lack of fear.
How so?
Think about it. You're leaving your entire front, your vital organs, your chest, your stomach, completely exposed. It's the body's way of saying, I am so confident in this situation, I perceive zero threat from you. That's a serious power move.
Let's talk about the first moment of contact then, the handshake. It sets the tone instantly.
It really does. It's like a tiny 3-second negotiation, and it all boils down to palm direction.
Okay, break it down for us.
The dominant handshake is when the person turns their palm just slightly downward, so their hand is on top. It's a subtle, often unconscious attempt to establish control.
And the opposite would be?
The submissive handshake, where your palm is turned slightly upward, you're literally offering your hand up to them, signaling that you're willing to be led.
So the goal for a neutral, respectful interaction is to keep it vertical.
Perfectly vertical. Both palms straight up and down. That's a handshake of equality. And of course, you want to avoid the extremes.
The bone crusher.
Ugh, yes, the bone crusher, which is just aggressive and unnecessary.
Yeah.
And its sad counterpart, the dead fish.
The limp, lifeless hand.
Which signals either weakness or worse, total indifference. If someone gives you a dead fish handshake, their engagement level is probably about 0.
So I've covered these pretty conscious signals of power and defense. What happens when someone is trying to hide something? When they're feeling doubtful or maybe even being deceptive?
Now we get into the really interesting stuff. The involuntary hand-to-face gestures. It all comes back to that 3 monkeys idea. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
The body trying to block things out.
The subconscious mind is literally trying to stop the deceitful words from coming out or block the unpleasant information from coming in. The most obvious one is the mouth cover.
Just putting a hand over your mouth.
Right, but in adults, it's rarely that obvious. It's usually much quicker, more refined. A finger might just brush the lips, or a couple of fingers rest on the chin nearby.
And I've read that the nose rub is connected to this.
Yes, the nose rub or a quick nose touch is often a disguised, super fast version of the mouth cover. The lie can cause a rush of adrenaline, which can make the nerve endings in the nose tingle, the so-called Pinocchio effect. It happens so fast, the person doing it doesn't even realize it.
So if you see that right after someone makes a big claim,
You should definitely be asking a follow-up question. The same goes for the eye rub.
trying to see no evil.
Exactly. Blocking out a lie they're hearing or a reality they don't want to face. And you also see it with the ear rub or the neck scratch, and especially the collar pull.
Ah, the classic hot under the collar.
It's a real thing. The person feels trapped or anxious or caught in a lie, and they literally feel the need to get some air to their neck. It's a huge tell for discomfort.
It's amazing how weaky our faces are.
Right.
But if someone is really trying to control their face and hands, the real truth often comes out somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely. The further from the brain, the less conscious control we have, which means the legs and feet are probably the most honest parts of the body.
We focus so much on our facial expression, we just completely forget about our feet.
Completely. So let's talk about sitting down. A standard leg cross can be defensive. But what about that move, the figure four?
The ankle resting on the opposite knee.
That's the one. In a business or negotiation setting, that is a highly competitive, even argumentative posture. It's territorial. You're taking up more space, you're shielding your vital area, and you're mentally closed off. It's very, very hard to persuade someone who's in a figure four.
Okay, what about the opposite? Someone who is really nervous but trying to hide it.
Look down for the ankle lock. That's when their ankles are hooked together, often pulled way back under the chair. It's the physical equivalent of biting your tongue. They are holding back a strong negative emotion or serious nervousness.
This is huge, I think. Direction, where the feet are pointing.
This might be the single most reliable tell of all, because it's almost completely unconscious. Your feet point where your mind wants to go.
So if we're talking and my feet are pointed at you, I'm engaged.
You're engaged. If your torso is turned towards me, but your feet are angled toward the nearest door,
I want out.
you want out. It's the strongest nonverbal signal that a person wishes they were somewhere else, no matter how polite their words are.
That's incredibly useful information.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to another involuntary signal. Attraction, interest. This is where the eyes give everything away.
They really do. We're talking about pupil dilation. When a person is genuinely interested or excited by something or someone, their pupils automatically get bigger.
To let more light in, to see more of the good thing.
Precisely. And conversely, if they're looking at something they find unpleasant or they're feeling angry or negative, their pupils constrict. They get tiny. This is so reliable that traders used to use it to gauge interest in deals. It's like a built-in truth serum for desire.
And what about the more overt signals, the courtship gestures?
Right, the preening. For men, this often involves adjusting their clothing, fiddling with their tie, straightening their cuffs. But the big one, the real display of sexual confidence, is placing the thumbs in the belt or in the pockets. It's a gesture that frames the groin area.
It's a primal display.
Very primal. For women, you also see preening gestures, flipping or touching the hair, smoothing down clothing. Exposing the wrists is also a common one, showing that soft, vulnerable skin. And then there are leg postures designed to draw attention, signaling openness and interest.
All happening mostly under the radar of our conscious minds.
Almost entirely.
So we've covered a ton of ground here, from defense and power to deception and attraction. I think our mission is complete. For the listener, what is the one big takeaway they can start using tomorrow?
The takeaway is to stop looking for a single tell. It doesn't exist. Always, always look for the cluster 3 or more signals happening together and filter all through context.
And start noticing the simple binary of open versus closed.
That's it. Openness is palms up, a vertical handshake, feet pointing towards you. Closed is crossed arms, hands touching the face. That territorial figure 4 leg cross.
And when you see someone shift from an open cluster to a closed one in the middle of a conversation,
that's your cue. You've hit a nerve. Whatever you just said or did, it made them defensive. You need to stop, change your approach, maybe ask a question, because their words might still be polite, but their body just told you the truth.
that insight right there is the real advantage.
It is. It's about getting a real-time read on someone's true emotional state. And here's a final thought for you to take with you. The next time you're in a formal meeting, ignore what's being said for just a moment. Look at who uses that confident steeple gesture. But more specifically, who uses it while they're listening versus who uses it while they're talking.
Because that tells you who is confidently processing versus who is actively persuading.
Exactly. Who, just by their quiet posture, is actually directing the entire flow of the conversation and who is just reacting. That silent difference will show you the true power dynamic in the room.